Hello, Scott Wonder here from Wonderwoods. Welcome to another Wonderwoods video. In this video, I'm going to show you how we built this banquette top, walnut live edge, out of two pieces of walnut that are seamed together with a fun little joint here to make it wider and make it this funky shape to fit this banquette. The banquette is shorter on that side than it is on this side. So my customer asked me for a shape that would fit that. So kind of square, but also longer out here. Obviously I searched around a while for a slab to try to find it fit perfect. I found a slab that had a crotch, but crotch also would come out and be longer on that side, which we didn't want. So what I did was I took two slabs from the same tree, let's say concentric, not concentric, consecutive cuts. This longer one here, the smaller one was on top of it, and I slid this one over to give me the width I needed, and it had a nice shape to it that came down. It was also a crotch, but the crotch on it was down here lower where we kind of cut it off and make it square. So I'm going to show you how we put this banquette top together, and especially show you some more fun on the CNC. Here are the two slabs I picked out for this project. You can see near the top of the slabs are the ones that I'm using for this video, and at the bottom in the last video for the same customer we did some shelves, and they came out of the bottom of these slabs, so it was very good use of material. Anyways, you can see that the two pieces kind of slide to the right and then fit together pretty nicely. There was some shaping work to do to make them perfect, but it gave us the longer side on the left and the shorter side on the right. So after I chalked the curve on both pieces and kind of figured out where I wanted it to be to get rid of the defects and to make them come together as nicely as possible, I drew the line in Illustrator and then transformed that or transported it, moved it to the CNC machine. I just like to work in Illustrator better, so I do that first. And then all we do is program it to cut on that line, but to cut one piece on the left side of the line and to cut the other piece on the right side of the line. And then if it did its job, which it always does, and I programmed it correctly, they should go together nicely. You can see here that I put it on some nice, slow, easy cutting passes, so there's very little deviation. The bit's not getting pushed around or anything like that, and nothing's vibrating or causing any problems that might make that cut less than perfect. So I just kept working on that until it came out nice. I did move the piece a few times after I made a cut and then realized I'd like to shimmy it over a little bit. I did that a few times until they ended up exactly where I wanted them and the width I needed. Tom and Brian worked on gluing them up, and they went together pretty well, except for one spot in the middle didn't seem to want to go. We kept working on that for a while, back and forth, and I think it was just a matter of getting the slab slid into place. Kind of it follows the curve in a weird little pattern, so you need to get it just perfectly located. After we squeezed on it a while, went back and forth, it closed up nice, and you can see how good the seam came out. After the two slabs were glued up, next it was time to start working on blending the two pieces together. They went together pretty nice at the seam, but some of the edges really need to be worked on to just make it friendly. I always tell everybody in the shop, just, you know, everybody's going to touch it, so make sure it feels really friendly. So I spent a while on that, and then flipped it over on the bottom to get the two live edges to blend together. They were coming in some funky angle there, so I did that with the belt sander. And it didn't need to be too perfect because it was on the bottom side of the slab, so that went pretty nice. After I had that done, we had to go and work on the job to install the shelves. So while we're there doing the shelf installation, we took the top with us to do a test fit and make sure we liked it. And you can see Mikey there tried it out, making sure it looks good, which it did.
So I came back and worked on the finish.
This slab, after it's been assembled, is a little bit too wide to go through our wide belt sander. It's a little bit over 40 and our wide belt sander is only 36. So I get the seam here, and when I glue them together, they're not perfectly flat. So it needs a little bit more of aggressive sanding. So I'm using the Rotex. It's got two settings. One is an aggressive setting, which I have it on now. It's kind of a mix of a rotary and an orbital. So it's pretty aggressive. And then after I get done with that, get that pretty smooth, then I'll go over to the smooth setting on the sander, which is basically an orbital. It's an aggressive orbital, but it's still an orbital. It's gonna get a clear coat, and that finish on the 150 with just the orbital on the Rotex looks great, and that'll be done.
I finished this tabletop with Krystal conversion varnish. The first coat is Krystal sealer. After the Krystal sealer is dry, sand it with 320 and then spend a lot of time blowing it out. You can see that white dust on there. If you do not get it all out of the cracks and crevices and anywhere you can see that white dust, there's a chance that when you spray the top coat that little bit of white dust still shows up in there. Unlike regular lacquer, where the next coat melts in, Krystal conversion varnish does not. So that kind of white plasticky resin, if you leave it on there and don't get out of the cracks, it'll still show up as little white specks in there. So after that, I sprayed the last two coats with Krystal conversion varnish. This is, I think, a dull. We've been using a lot of dull lately as the sheen. It looks nice and glossy and shiny when I spray it here, but obviously when it dries out, it dulls down some. It's just kind of in style now. We used to always spray satin, but now everybody's leaning towards dull as the finish. We use Krystal for all our tabletops and anything that gets wet or could get wet because it's very durable, and it's especially durable against water. Once it sets up, basically nothing's going to melt it. Even if you put lacquer thinner on it, it will hold up to lacquer thinner for quite a while before it starts to melt down. So we like it a lot just for that durability factor. And then it also is pretty scratch resistant, just generally durable in all occasions for a place like this, like a tabletop where it's going to really get a lot of use and obviously get wet. We use it on bar tops and things like that, and even on countertops with undermount sinks, and it really holds up well. We especially like the Krystal because it dries and is sandable in like about a half hour or so. And we are always out of time and looking for ways to speed things up.
Thanks for watching this video. If you were semi-impressed, a little bit entertained, maybe just bored, go ahead and click the subscribe button. I like to watch the subscribers go up. It's fun, it's entertaining for me, and I think someday it'll help me out. So thank you, and until the next video, see you.